Just as he was about to put it on, the system interrupted him. He was scared he might have lost everything. Selling it on the black market could earn him billions. He realized he didn't want to be in dirty dungeons anymore. He couldn't raise his level in his 20s and didn't think the eye would be useful. The system crashed, but he was used to it. In the world of dungeons, unexpected situations were common. They were either lucky breaks or tragic events. Jaehyun headed back to the warriors. The main excuse is him in front of the magician and asks him to wait a little longer, and then the guy appears from behind the magician who shouts at him to hurry up because they are already leaving. The guy, bowing before the magician, apologizes for being late and promises that this will not happen again. Later, the man taps the guy on the shield and asks him not to get sour. He replies that it's okay, everything is fine. He also says that soju is on him tonight. You can't always be a freeloader. The man agrees in surprise. They catch up with the others. The hero notices that when they are inside the dungeon, there are no laws and regulations. Everything remains within these walls. Bragging about finding an expensive thing is tantamount to suicide. Standing in line, Jaehyun thinks that it would be wise to sell the eye after the raid is over. The most important thing is not to attract attention. The magicians say that once the formation is reformed, let's continue. Then everything starts to sparkle above them. An explosion occurs, and purple smoke begins to fill the room. Everyone coughs. Jaehyun realizes that the smoke is poisonous. If he breathes, he will die. "We need to get out of here," the man shouts. The guy invites everyone to leave the dungeon right away. At the same time, he sees the man being stabbed by a sword. The frightened hero rushes to run. He understands that those explosions, toxic smoke, and dead people weren't caused by monsters. He is sure that dungeon thugs were involved. Their goal is to destroy the Meteor Guild. If he goes to the exit, he will come across toxic fumes and there may be killers. When waiting, it's better to stay inside. Now the guy is angry that everything is going so badly. Now is not the time to wind snot on his fist. He found a mythical item. He will not give up so easily. A silhouette appears behind him and launches an attack. The guy dodges. The silhouette says, "I knew you'd survive, Jaehyun." The shocked hero sees young woman in front of him. He reminds our hero that he promised to come today. Our hero, judging by his expression, understood who was standing in front of him. So he asked, "Is this poisonous smoke really the hand of young women and also their meteor group?" Young woman made an incredible face that could let everyone know that he was satisfied with his work. As soon as our protagonist heard this, he realized that he needed to calmly understand the situation. So at the same time, he asked the reason for his action. But the only thing young woman did was throw up his hands and say that it was his sponsor's request, and decides many people hate this Meteor Guild. After all, when you disrespect other groups, then of course you quickly earn yourself a bad name. This is understandable to absolutely everyone. At this point we can understand that dungeon thugs make good use of the narrow passages of the cave to fulfill their dirty contracts. Our hero was sure that the attack on the Meteor Guild just happened in the zone only thanks to them. This was all putting him in a very uncomfortable position, because would he actually be able to deal with his opponent? But as soon as he felt the energy coming from young women, he realized that all this was impossible because he was a ranked magician. Such people only make up 2% of the entire population of the country. While at this time Jaehyun had a D rank, he wasn't considered weak nor strong. Their goal was to keep quiet. But he realized the system might be closed, trapping him. He wasn't sure if escape was possible. Running away felt dishonorable, yet he had no choice. He wanted to be there for his friend Myung-ho, who always made him laugh. But it seemed impossible. With the appearance of an Yggdrasil tree, the world turned cruel, leaving no room for the weak. As Jaehyun turned to young woman, he couldn't see clearly. He narrowly avoided attacks, reacting just in time. He gazed at young woman's face, seeing only determination. His goal went beyond the Meteor Guild. Young woman continued firing, pushing him to flee. Why would he target a simple D-rank raider? He questioned his worth. An image surfaced, showing his insignificance. "Did my own father want me dead?" he asked young woman. He laughed, revealing his father's involvement. Memories of his mother and his own near death surfaced. Saddened, he asked why. Young woman smiled, sharing the twisted plan. Jaehyun's life was nearly forfeit, but his mana surged, growing stronger. Young woman shot chains, urgency in his eyes. He aimed to end it all. As soon as the main character locked onto the charging attack with his enhanced vision, it shattered. At that moment he couldn't see clearly because Odin's lost eye was being used against him. He hoped he wouldn't have to sell it. Young woman shouted, insisting the magic couldn't be dispelled. But the main character's sole desire was to defeat him in vengeance. The Odin's lost eye had a new power. It could absorb and create skills. A few moments after Jaehyun declared his intentions, Rapid chains, once belonging to young women, materialized behind him. It seemed impossible. How could a warrior like Jaehyun master a spell that had taken years for others? Young woman explained he didn't know how he learned the ultimate spell, yet he was confident our hero wouldn't stand a chance. The chains of both opponents clashed. Young woman, aware of his weakness, evaded and attempted a spell, unfamiliar to the main character. It failed. Our hero unleashed a new skill, universal derivation, summoning another chain. Young woman's defense shattered, the chain hurtling towards him. The explosion engulfed them upon impact. Our hero approached the wounded opponent, whose broken glasses lay nearby. In his eyes, a mixture of defiance and desperation was evident. It was clear that Jaehyun's end was near. After the battle was over, our main character simply fell because he had no stamina or mana left. It was clear in his eyes that he could no longer go on. He did not even think that his end would be like this, because immediately after a successful find, he would die. It wasn't even surprising that he was lucky today, but Death, who is compared to a girlfriend that the raider just doesn't want to go on a date with, turned out to be incredibly cool. So as soon as he closed his eyes, the system hung up. And then, a new control system was installed. It was even written that it can load at the point in the past that it wants to return to. As soon as he read this message, he realized that if they were talking about his past, it could only mean that he could have been saved. He couldn't tell if this was just another change, if it was going to be a good thing or a tragedy. But apparently Tom didn't care anymore because he wasn't in a very good state to have a choice at all. It was the only solution to survive, so he started the restart. Beautiful women appeared in front of him who were most likely Valkyries. They were blindfolded, but they still held out their hands. They were talking in an ancient language, which of course he didn't understand. But the only thing the system told him was that he had received the new passive skill, which meant that from now on he would become an enemy of the Aesir. So the gods watched him, or rather began to. As soon as it was all over, he woke up in his bed. He couldn't believe that this had actually happened. Looking at his hands, a message appeared in front of him that he had successfully moved to the past. He couldn't believe it because was it all a dream? Did it really happen for real? He thought that it was really a dream, so long that he even forgot that his own mother was alive. He didn't want to interrupt it, so as soon as he saw his mother, he immediately threw himself into her arms, sobbing violently. As he did so, our protagonist moved to November 15th, 2020, but some restrictions were imposed on him because the body was set to only 20%. He noticed that it was actually the apartment he used to live in. The only difference was that the system constantly started giving him a task. The first one was rest, which was to restore his stamina to 80%. The difficulty level was the lowest, but the reward was an empty card. After all, he knew that there was something he needed to figure out. It was the reboot of the new system that brought him back to the past. Of course, such turns cannot surprise him because strange things happened to him, so if what had happened could give him new insights, then he could definitely adapt to similar situations. And that was the main thing. Since the system moved him exactly 11 years ago, now he should have been in the 3rd grade, in the 3rd year of training. What is happening? But this time he definitely won't become a swordsman. As he looked at the calendar, his excitement grew. He was going to become a magician. That was his new goal. While he and his mother sat down for breakfast, she noticed his unease. Something was bothering him, she thought. He had always been determined, but now he was crying. She put down her utensils and asked gently, "Did something happen, dear?" He brushed it off, saying it was just a bad dream. But then he gathered the courage to tell her what was really on his mind. She assumed he might be worried about the danger of becoming a raider, a prestigious but perilous profession. She suggested he continue at a regular school if he didn't want to attend the academy. However, he surprised her by revealing his desire to join the magic department instead of choosing the path of a warrior. At first she supported his choice, but she noticed something unusual in his words. He had always been so focused on becoming a warrior. She approached him, her curiosity evident, and asked if he was sure about this decision. She wanted him to think about his passion and purpose rather than just money or prestige. His mother's words moved him deeply. He shed tears but realized it wasn't the time to cry. He had to get stronger, to avenge his father's rank in the Raiders. After a brief rest, he received a quest card, a fresh start to his journey. Each day he trained rigorously, yet he couldn't quite understand his new system's tests. The only certainty was his ability to see the future, to know secrets and ruins. His remarkable memory helped, reminding him of his past role as a dungeon guide. He only had combat skills, which made sense for a future warrior. Sitting at his desk, he examined his skills and stats on the information board. he noticed a peculiar pattern. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.